But what we can do is satisfy that entrepreneurial urge by giving young people a sense that they're helping to create this system. So the IRL isn't this thing that sort of is imposed on them. It's something that they're part of building and part of designing and inventing and experimenting with. So yeah, they might be in a particular state when they enter into it, but it's not a static thing. It's something that's going to evolve over time, and we're going to learn tons of lessons once we actually, the rubber hits the road a little bit more and we actually start practicing. A lot of this talk, we're going to be like, wow, this isn't quite working out how I expected, and so we'll adapt and we'll evolve together. Whereas the kind of typical corporate structure where maybe you try to move up in the ranks, but you're moving through something that's already handed to you. You don't have any real say in what the structure is like. And maybe just for a couple more minutes, I could talk about a couple books I brought. So this is Scotty Kellogg wrote this one. It's called Toolbox for Sustainable City Living. And he has a community environmental education center in Albany, and the subtitle is A Do-It-Ourselves Guide. And so that do-it-yourself, that DIY spirit, I think stems from wanting to get away from the sense of alienation, right? Like DIY food, like, is departing from, like, I'm eating chicken, I don't even realize that, where chicken comes from. I mean, it's young students that I'm dealing with, they don't even realize that beef comes from cows, and they live in the country. It's crazy. So to get away from that sense of alienation, which is, I'd say, a defining characteristic of kind of corporate work sometimes, because you're this little cog in a machine, is to do it yourself. But all DIY cultures are really, really rich communities, right? The DIY bike shop in Troy, the Bike Rescue, is a collective. DIY Media Center, the Sanctuary, is a community, is a group of people. So from DIY, this like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, to do it ourselves, then you can design not just the product, but the ourself. Like, how do we set up this community? How do we make decisions here? I mean, that's kind of a big reason that I'm involved, and I think a lot of my students get really excited when I talk about Mondragon and Emilia Romagna and other places where it's a novel structure, not just a novel thing to, a fancier, lighter hammer or something. So the other one, so I've been teaching design classes. This is Change by Design by Tim Brown. This is what it's all about. He's saying design is not just designing products, it's design thinking. It's how, the subtitle is How Design Thinking Transforms Organizations and Inspires Innovation. And this is like the most famous designer in the world, so this isn't fringe stuff. They're talking about how to design your collaborative team, right? And so that's kind of what the IRL is all about. That's what we've been talking about for the last couple of hours, is how do we actually design this system? This is Lynn Margulis' Symbiotic Planet, A New View of Evolution. And the more we learn about how evolution actually happens, we can get away from this social Darwinism thing where it's like just me trying to evolve by beating out all the competition, and see the unit of evolution is actually organism plus environment. So we all thrive when we as individuals in a community thrive. And it's not like the more I thrive by beating up everything else, even though we think of it that way. The other thing about biology is that designers are increasingly looking to biology for inspiration, not just to design products, again, but to design processes and to design systems. So instead of just saying this bug is really good at capturing water, I'm going to learn that to make this thing that captures water. That's really cool. But to design like an industrial ecological system where different businesses, the waste stream of one becomes the input for another, that's way more cool. And it's way more entrepreneurial, and it's way more free in a sense. This book is Multitude, and it's kind of all about what Corey and I were talking about on the way over here is kind of I think the younger generations are kind of afraid of really centralized things, whether it's corporations having too much power or governments having too much power. But coming up with models that can spread laterally, it gets big, but not by becoming like this, like, I don't know, kind of cancerous coagulation of power. It's about a network of social movements that, with new information technologies and kind of, it's the good side of globalization, the potential there for social movements to spread too. And finally, the other book I brought is EcoMind, changing the world we think to create the world we want, and this is just about a shift in consciousness that I think underlies a lot of this. So kind of similar to the way Jeremy Rifkin talks about it, changes in technologies, changes in economies, and changes in consciousness are all related. And so Francis Moore Lepay, who wrote Diet for a Small Planet over 40 years ago, is talking about getting away from this kind of fear-based, individualistic, I got to get more for me so I don't starve to death kind of mentality, to a how do we kind of create a world filled with surplus that's well distributed, which is what we need to do to avoid systemic ecological and societal collapse, according to the NASA study that came out recently. Too much concentrations of wealth, that unequal distribution, combined with ecological, kind of these one-way extractive approaches to material, are the two things that could cause kind of the end of our world as we know it. So to create the world we want, we need to change the way that we think. We need to change the way that we network different social movements, change our relationship to nature and see it as creative and wise, not just this dead stuff. We need to change the way we design, not just from products to processes and systems. And we need to do it all ourselves, not just do it yourself as this alienated individual. So they go hand in hand. It's not more collective is less freedom. It's more freedom to design new collectives.